Hello guys, it's WeatherTZK and today we're going to be doing the Survivalist weapons tier list for Killing Floor 2. Now I decided to put the grenades and the knife in this tier list because, there's only 5 weapons really for Survivalist. It would just be really short if I did it. Just to make the video a bit longer, we can discuss the grenades and even the knives, even though most of the knives are pretty useless, but we'll get onto that later. But starting off with the freeze thrower, I would give this about a C tier. The freeze thrower is good for freezing Zeds in place, it's good for escaping bad situations, you have lots of ammo with it as well, you got 600 rounds. It also has a really big magazine as well with 100 rounds. However, for me the freeze thrower has a lot of issues. It's got terrible sight, it's not really very good for long range. Not really the best at range either, it's more of like a close combat weapon. And the projectile doesn't really travel that far either. It's really slow at killing medium to small Zeds as well. I find it takes a bit too long. And also the freezing can be a bit inconsistent with larger Zeds, doesn't always work that well. Next up is the Kilowatt. Again, this is going to be about the one tier above in B. The Kilowatt has better sights, which is good for long range. It has an alt fire as well, which shoots like a beam, which does rip through Zeds quite nicely. It does have quite a nice magazine size at 50 rounds, so it's not too bad. However, the Kilowatt for me has quite a few issues. The charge shot takes a while to fully charge, which means you can easily get swarmed by Zeds. And also the charge shot does feel a little bit weak in my opinion, but I know they have buffed it recently. So it's not bad, but still feels a little bit weak. The Kilowatt is also expensive as well at 2000 dosh, making it the most expensive weapon for Survivalist, as it is a tier 5. You can't upgrade the Kilowatt either, and it's weak against flesh pounds, but it is pretty good with Scrakes. I did used to like the Kilowatt on Survivalist, but it's just not a great weapon. Next up is the Arc Generator. This is going to have to be an A tier for me. It is a good trash clearing weapon, and the alt fire will actually shoot like a ball of electricity, similar to the BFG 9000 from Doom. It has a lot of spare ammo as well, it has like 500 rounds. It has a big magazine as well. And it is a pretty good boss killer as well, with hands in the Matriarch. Not to mention the alt fire can also push Zeds back as well, which is good for crowd control. However, for me it is a little bit slow at killing Zeds because you do have to charge up the alt fire by killing Zeds. And the alt fire for me doesn't do that great damage, but it is still pretty decent. And it is the heaviest of all weapons as well, it weighs in at 9 weight. It is also the second most expensive weapon behind the Kilowatt. And next up we have the Reducto Ray. Where do we start with this thing? This is the worst of all of them. It goes into D tier. The Reducto Ray, it struggles to kill even the smallest Zeds, like Clots. It just takes too long to shrink and kill them. Not to mention, when you shrink Zeds as well, it makes them even more annoying because they run faster, they hit harder. It's very difficult to aim at a Zed when they're really small, so if anything, you're making your job harder for yourself by shrinking them. And speaking of the shrinking as well, you burn through ammo quite fast because you're having to stand there shrinking the Zed, waiting for them to die. And also, the sights aren't very good either for long range. I don't know why you would even use this weapon. However, the Reducto Ray does have some good things going for it. It does have a lot of ammo, sitting at 690 rounds. It does have a big magazine at 100 rounds. However, it is cheap at 900 dosh, so you could technically take it, but there's just better things you can use really. And next up is the HRG Locust. This is going to be a B tier. The HRG Locust has a lock-on alt fire that hits targets every time. It's a good trash clearing weapon, definitely the best out of the freeze thrower and the Reducto Ray. It has a lot of reserve ammo, around 97 rounds. It even has a bleed effect that makes Zeds bleed out. However, for me, HRG Locust does have its cons as well. It has a small magazine size of 6. Also, reloading takes a while as well, which is a bit annoying. And it's not the best large Zed killer. It even struggles with Scrakes as well, so it's not that good. And it can be a bit slow at killing medium to small Zeds too, depending on how many shots you have. If you fire like 3 shots at one enemy, it will kill him quite quickly, whereas one tends to take quite a while. Next up is the Dohen Gun. This is going to be a C tier. With the Dohen Gun, you actually use your dosh as ammunition, which means you can pick up your money off the ground when you shoot it. and it's also an easy way of giving dosh to other players. However, for me, the Dohen Gun has quite a lot of issues. It's really weak with medium to small Zeds, and another big issue with the Dohen Gun is other players can pick up your money as well, which means if you have very little money to work with, then you're going to lose all of it because people can just pick it up. It's also not a very good weapon if you're poor, so if you've only got like 500 dosh on you when you use this weapon, you're going to run out of ammo very quickly. Whereas if you got like 10,000 dosh, then just fire away, you don't really need 10,000. It also has a small magazine size of 20 rounds, which doesn't really make it that effective. If it had 30, I would like it a bit more, but 20 just feels like you burn through it quite quickly. Although it does shoot slower, so I suppose it doesn't really burn that fast. And next up is the HRG Grenade for Commando. This is basically a high explosive grenade. It's a more concentrated explosion rather than frag grenades, where frag grenades covers a large area. The HRG Grenade focuses more on damage, and to be fair, I would give it a B tier. With the HRG Grenade, it is a good trash clearer. You can stun Zeds nearby. I've even used it on Commando to kill Flashbangs, although it's not the most efficient thing in the world. It does do some decent damage to Flashbangs. Not very good with Scrakes, but of course that's obvious because they don't take damage to explosives. However, with every regular grenade you will have splash damage, so you have to be careful of where you throw it. It's only really effective with medium to small Zeds, but you can also use it with Flashbangs, although there is better ways you can deal with Flashbangs. Next up is the Frag Grenade. This is going to be the same tier. Frag grenades do have a bigger AoE than HRG grenades, as it does shoot shrapnel. It is a good trash clearing grenade as well, and it can stun Zeds in the area. However, again, just like the HRG grenade, it does have a lot of splash damage, and it is really only good for small groups. Next up is the Medic Grenade. Do I really need to say any more than apart from it being S tier? The Medic Grenade not only heals you, but it also poisons Zeds as well. It's good for holding out on area security missions. You can also heal multiple people at once without using your darts, which have to recharge. The Medic Grenade, it feels like it doesn't really last that long. It's also got a small AoE, but it is really effective at healing multiple people at once. Next up is the Freeze Grenade for Sharpshooter. This is an S tier. I absolutely love this thing. With Sharpshooter, you can throw this at Zeds and it will freeze them in place, which gives you the opportunity to headshot. However, with Flashbangs, you have to throw it at them before they enrage, because if they enrage, you can't freeze them. However, freeze grenades are really useful because it allows you to take down larger Zeds really well. And overall, it's just a really good crowd control grenade. Although, again, it does have a bit of splash damage with it, so you do have to be careful where you throw it. And the effect doesn't really last that long either, which means you have a very short window of opportunity to shoot Zeds. Next up is the Molotov. I would give this about a B tier. It's really good at clearing trash Zeds. It's also really good with the ground fire ability. However, it's only really effective with small Zeds. You also have a lot of splash damage with the Molotov, and it definitely isn't a large Zed killer. So don't expect to kill Flashbangs or Scrakes. You will end up just enraging them. You will need a weapon to actually kill them. Next up is the Nail Bomb. I would give this about an A tier. Just like the Frag Grenade, it shoots shrapnel in a large area, whereas it feels a lot more effective than Nail Bomb. It is a good trash clearing grenade, although it doesn't really feel that effective at times, but it is a great Zed stunner, although again, Zed stunning with the Nail Bomb is a bit weird. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So for me, Frags do better in that department at stunning Zeds, but it does have a lot of splash damage as well, which is the only issue. But it has a bigger AoE, it does take out enemies in the larger area. Next up is the EMP grenade. I don't really like this grenade, to be honest. It just makes Zeds harder to kill because when you stun them they move around a lot, so it just makes it even more annoying to try and kill Zeds. And you also do have a bit of splash damage as well, but it doesn't really affect you. However, the EMP, similar to the Flashbang, can stun Zeds, but they move around, which makes them a lot harder to hit. And it is good for crowd control, and is really good for getting you out of any bad situation. However, for me, I prefer Flashbangs, because with Flashbangs they stay in one place, whereas with EMPs they just run around everywhere. The half a stick of Dynamite, I would give a B tier. The Dynamite has a massive explosive radius. It's really good for killing multiple Zeds at once. Also, if you throw the stick of Dynamite at the right time, it will explode on impact when it hits a Z, which is really cool. However, the only issue is it has a massive splash damage if you get too close to it, and it does take ages to go off if it doesn't detonate on impact. So if you end up missing a Z and it ends up going on the floor, it will take a while to go off, which is the only issue. But it is quite effective at crowd clearing, and it does have a massive explosive radius, which is really good. And finally, last but not least, we have the Flashbang. I'm going to give this an A tier. It's really good for stunning larger Zeds as well, which means you can easily take them down with SWAT. It's a great crowd control grenade because all the Zeds will get stunned. It helps get you out of any bad situation, and what's even better is the Flashbang doesn't actually stun you either, which means you can get out of any situation. The only problems with the Flashbang is it doesn't really last that long. The effect does wear off quite quickly, but apart from that, it is a really good grenade for taking down large Zeds and also for crowd control. And next up is the knives for all of the perks. I mean, let's face it, most of these are terrible. You've got Berserker's knife, which is terrible. You've got Support's knife, which is terrible. The Scalpel's pretty bad. Utility knife's pretty bad. Fireman's knife is pretty bad. The Bowie knife is pretty bad. Yeah, basically, the rest of these are pretty bad. But I've saved the Commando and SWAT knife until the end, because with Commando and SWAT they have a fallback skill, which basically allows you to increase your knife's damage. So I would give it a higher tier in E, but again, it's not really that great. Berserker actually does have a few skills like parry, which allows you to get extra damage, so I would move this up to E tier, but they're just not that great. So you can get better weapons like the katana. Why would you use the knife? I don't know. But anyway, this was my Survivalist weapons tier list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do let me know down below, but don't forget to like and subscribe, join Discord if you're new, and I will see you in the next video.